Your potential has never been limited by your intelligence, your discipline, or even your beliefs. The real block is far more insidious. Most people live their entire lives confined within a construct they never recognize. It doesn't come with bars or walls. It doesn't demand permission. It's invisible. And yet, it dictates every thought you have, every emotion you feel, and every outcome you unconsciously attract. This is not science fiction. It's not metaphor. It's the quantum trap, a subtle framework deeply embedded within the energetic layers of your mind that governs how you experience reality. Not because you chose it, but because you've been unconsciously observing through it. Before you can even begin to unlock your true power, before you talk about manifestation, expanded consciousness, or alternate timelines, you must first come to terms with the reality that your perception has been hijacked. And the trap keeping it in place isn't just psychological. It's quantum. There are forces at play within the mind-minute energetic patterns that mirror the same principles that govern particles at the subatomic level. You've heard of the observer effect. You've heard that energy follows focus. But what you haven't heard is that your focus has already been pre-programmed by unseen biases, energetic interference, and thought loops coded into your subconscious from the moment you first became aware of the world around you. This video is not about surface-level self-help. It's not about simply thinking positively or reciting affirmations. Those are like throwing rocks at a digital firewall. Today, you're going to learn what that firewall is, how it got there, and most importantly, how to disable it. Across 10 powerful insights, we'll break down how the quantum trap subtly operates beneath your thoughts, emotions, and decisions. You'll see how reality bends not just to what you believe, but to what you unconsciously expect, and why your expectations are often being shaped without your consent. You'll learn how phenomena like the observer effect, entanglement, and dimensional lag aren't just theoretical, they are being lived through you every day. And then, you'll be given the keys to something greater, because escaping the trap doesn't require force. It requires clarity. It requires awareness. And once the invisible mechanisms are brought into light, they begin to lose control over you. So if you've ever felt like you're destined for more, but something keeps pulling you back, if you've noticed patterns that repeat no matter how hard you try to change them, if you've sensed a truth behind reality that seems just out of reach, then stay exactly where you are, because you're about to see the real reason why your mind feels like it's running in circles, and you're going to learn how to break free permanently. Let's begin. You've been told that you create your reality with your thoughts, but that's only half the equation. The truth is far more complex and far more revealing. Every moment of your life you're observing, but you're not just observing the outside world. You're also observing your own thoughts, your own emotions, your own identity. This act of inner observation is where the trap begins. The observer effect, as it's known in quantum mechanics, shows that particles behave differently when they are being measured. They don't settle into a fixed state until someone observes them. But here's the part rarely discussed. In the realm of consciousness, the same principle applies, but it's not just about observation. It's about who is doing the observing. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people are observing reality through the lens of a false self. You may think you're making conscious choices, but in reality, those choices are being filtered through decades of subconscious programming. Your mental lens has been shaped by childhood conditioning, trauma, cultural narratives, social expectations, and inherited belief systems. These form what can be described as a default observer identity. This default identity isn't neutral. It's filled with limitations. It tells you what's possible and what's not. It defines your value, your capability, your worthiness. It shapes the thoughts you permit and the desires you suppress. And when that version of you, the programmed observer, looks out into the quantum field, it collapses only what it expects. That means your thoughts, no matter how positive or ambitious, are being observed through a limited filter that keeps collapsing the same old versions of your life. You're not manifesting the future version of yourself. You're just collapsing a reality that matches the outdated version of your identity. Let's go deeper. Your subconscious mind is an incredibly powerful data processor. It absorbs information millions of times faster than your conscious mind. But because it's designed to seek consistency and safety, It locks into familiar thought patterns, even when those patterns are self-defeating. So when you try to change your life, but your observer is still anchored to who you've always been, the quantum field responds accordingly. Not to who you're becoming, but to who you've believed yourself to be for years. This is why affirmations can fall flat. You may speak words of abundance, but your observer, your quantum identity, is still broadcasting lack. You may visualize success, but your observer is still wired to fear failure. And the field doesn't respond to what you say. It responds to what you observe as real. So how do you shift this? First, you must recognize when you're observing from the wrong lens. This requires brutal honesty. Pay attention to the immediate emotional responses that arise when you imagine your goals. Are they energized? Or are they shadowed by doubt, fear, or hesitation? Those emotional responses are signals from the observer identity you're operating through. If resistance arises, you're likely collapsing a reality that aligns with your old programming, not your intended future. The second step is to create distance between your thoughts and your observer. This is not passive mindfulness. It's active observation of the observer. Ask yourself, who is watching this thought right now? When you start to notice the you behind your mental activity, you begin to loosen the grip of the programmed self. The third step is to introduce quantum dissonance, a conscious disruption of familiar mental patterns. Start holding dual awareness, the version of you that is observing from limitation and the version of you that already exists in a future timeline. This creates an energetic tension, and that tension forces the quantum field to begin aligning with a new observer. You don't need to fight the old version. You need to observe from beyond it, because the quantum field doesn't need effort, it needs precision. And precision begins with who is doing the observing. The observer effect is not just a scientific curiosity. It's the very mechanism behind your reality. But if the wrong version of you is doing the observing, the results will never change. You are not trapped by your environment. You're trapped by your observer identity. Change the observer, and the entire field will respond. Your mind is not operating in isolation. You may think your thoughts are solely yours, disconnected, private, and purely personal. But beneath the surface, there is an intricate web of energetic interaction constantly influencing the way you perceive, feel, and decide. This is the principle of mental entanglement, and it holds far more power over your reality than you might expect. At the quantum level, entanglement describes the phenomenon where two particles become so deeply connected that the state of one instantly affects the other, regardless of distance. But this isn't just a laboratory effect. It's a living, breathing reality inside the human experience. Every time you connect emotionally with another person, every time you deeply engage with a belief system, a group identity, a cultural narrative, you form entangled pathways. Invisible bonds that don't just affect you emotionally or intellectually, but energetically. These connections shape your thoughts in ways you often fail to notice. And over time, they become like hidden contributors in the quantum field of your consciousness, co-creating, modifying, even interrupting your intentions. Think of it this way. Every relationship you've ever had, every social group you've belonged to, every belief you've held passionately, has left an imprint. These imprints can act like embedded code within your consciousness, subtly rerouting your attention, emotional frequency, and inner dialogue. You may feel a desire to evolve, to create a new reality, but if your consciousness is still entangled with someone else's unresolved energy, your field becomes a mixed signal. That mixed signal collapses unpredictable, often self-sabotaging outcomes in the quantum realm. This is why people often feel confused, blocked, or emotionally hijacked for reasons they can't logically explain. They may set a clear intention, only to feel drained, anxious, or doubtful days later. That shift isn't always their own. It's the energetic residue of entanglement making itself known. And here's where the trap tightens. The more unaware you are of these entangled threads, the more susceptible you become to unconscious collaboration with outside forces, people, ideologies, and emotional patterns that are not aligned with your higher path. It's not just about influence. It's about co-creation. Energetic entanglement means other people's fears, expectations, and projections can begin to manifest through your field, because the connection gives them access. This isn't happening because someone is trying to manipulate you. It's happening because you never cleared the line. To identify these connections, you must look for patterns that feel foreign to your essence. Thought patterns that feel intrusive. Emotional spikes that seem disproportionate. Sudden energetic shifts when you're alone. You might notice that your energy dips after texting a specific person, or that anxiety appears out of nowhere after visiting a particular place, or that an old belief you thought you'd outgrown keeps resurfacing when you're about to make a major leap. These are not coincidences. These are signs of entangled circuits still active in your field. And if they're active, they're creating. So how do you reclaim sovereignty from this web? The first step is conscious isolation of thought. You must begin to distinguish between your core signal and the interference. This means carving out mental silence and feeling into the vibration of a thought before engaging with it. Is it expansive or restrictive? Does it elevate or compress your energy? Your true signal will always feel neutral, clear, and quietly powerful. Interference tends to come with noise, urgency, anxiety, loops of self-doubt. The second step is what we call energetic disentanglement. You can visualize this process by imagining cords of light stretching out from your body to various people, ideas, and memories. Begin to feel into which connections feel heavy or outdated. Then, mentally and emotionally release those cords, not with anger, but with finality. Say internally, I release all energetic contracts that no longer serve my evolution. I reclaim full sovereignty over my mind and field. You'll feel the shift immediately when you truly mean it. The third and final step is fortification. This is about strengthening the integrity of your own quantum signal. You do this through frequency rituals, sound, breathwork, nature immersion, and stillness. Anything that reinforces you as the central node of your experience. You are not a fragment of a collective hive. You are an individuated field of intelligent consciousness, and that field is only as powerful as its clarity. Mental entanglement is not inherently bad. In fact, it's the mechanism that allows for empathy, compassion, and collective evolution. But when unconscious, it becomes a gateway for manipulation, stagnation, and energetic leakage. To escape the trap, you must know who's in the room with you, even if the room is your own mind. Once you clear the noise of the entangled voices, something incredible happens. Your thoughts become sharper. Your emotions feel lighter. Your intuition strengthens. The quantum field begins to respond more directly, more precisely to your true signal because it's no longer being distorted. And for the first time in a long time, your reality begins to reflect you. Next, we'll examine why your goals often feel like they're always one step ahead of you, and how to reverse the subtle lag between thought and manifestation caused by something called dimensional resistance. You've made your intentions clear. You've visualized. You've aligned your emotions. You've taken action. But still, the results seem delayed, incomplete, or constantly out of reach. This isn't random. It's not that you're doing it wrong. It's that your thoughts are moving at one frequency, while the reality you're trying to reach is anchored in another. This invisible gap is what creates dimensional drag, a resistance field that stretches between desire and realization. At the quantum level, everything exists simultaneously. All potential realities are available in the field right now. The version of you with the successful business, the healed body, the awakened mind, it all exists. But between where you are and where that version of you lives, there are layers of frequency. These aren't just vibrational metaphors. They are energetic gradients, much like gravity or pressure. And unless your internal state matches the frequency of your desired outcome, that outcome remains in a delayed field. It doesn't mean it's not real. It just means you haven't matched the access point. This delay, this dimensional lag, is often interpreted as failure or bad timing. But it's neither. Your intentions are pure. Your vision is strong. But if the emotional, energetic, and behavioral alignment isn't calibrated to the target frequency, the result gets trapped in transit. This is the same principle that governs radio tuning. You could be transmitting a strong signal at 99.1 FM, But if your desired station is at 105.7 FM, it doesn't matter how loud or persistent your broadcast is, it won't reach the intended outcome. Here's how dimensional drag most commonly shows up. You set a goal, and for a brief moment you feel electric, aligned, inspired. That's the initial phase of resonance. But over the next few hours or days, your emotional field starts to revert. You reattach to worry, self-doubt, old routines, or subtle feelings of not yet. That shift in energy anchors you back to the previous dimension. The drag has been reactivated. This happens because while the mind may shift quickly, the emotional body and the energetic field often lag behind. You may mentally agree with the vision, but if your nervous system still holds fear, hesitation, or guilt, your manifestation is being filtered through friction. Dimensional drag is not about failure, it's about friction. The more conflict that exists between your inner state and your desired outcome, the longer the lag between thought and manifestation. So how do you collapse this delay? You start by reducing inner friction. That means identifying the micro-patterns of resistance that surface when you hold your vision. Ask yourself, does my body relax or tense when I imagine this outcome is real? Do I feel empowered or pressured? Do I trust the process or feel the need to control every step? These subtle reactions tell you how aligned or misaligned you really are. The second shift comes from full-spectrum coherence. This is when your thought, emotion, breath, and behavior are all aligned with the same frequency. No conflict, no contradiction, just one unified signal. Here's how to initiate this. 1. Thought coherence. Choose a single sentence that defines your desired state. Not the outcome, but the internal state that matches it. For example, I move with clarity and impact. 2. Emotional coherence. Bring your attention to the feeling that sentence generates. Not the thought of achieving it, but the feeling of already being it. Let the feeling expand in the body. 3. Breath coherence. Use the breath to stabilize the feeling. Slow, rhythmic inhales and exhales. Let the breath act as an anchor that locks the frequency in place. 4. Behavioral coherence. Identify a physical action that represents that energy, something small but meaningful. It could be speaking more confidently, organizing your space, or reaching out to someone with a new mindset. When all four are synchronized, you create a resonance field strong enough to override the drag. The dimensional weight begins to lift. But there's one more piece, the timeline perspective. Dimensional drag increases when you assume your desire must appear in a specific form, at a specific time, in a specific way. This attachment creates tension, and tension creates resistance. The solution is what we call timeline neutrality. This means holding the vision with intensity, but releasing the need to control how and when it arrives. Instead, you shift your focus to becoming the version of you who already lives on that timeline, regardless of whether it's physically visible yet. You become the match now, and allow reality to catch up without force. Dimensional drag is subtle, but once understood, it becomes your greatest compass. You'll start to recognize the emotional cues that signal misalignment. You'll know when your thoughts are outpacing your energy, and you'll have the tools to realign quickly, cleanly, without spiraling into frustration. When you learn how to operate across dimensions, not just with thought, but with full coherence, time itself begins to collapse. Results that once felt distant become immediate. Opportunities multiply, synchronicities increase. Because now, the field isn't responding to a wish. It's responding to a frequency match. So if you felt like you're always chasing the future, always waiting for the next phase, the breakthrough, the shift, understand this: you're not waiting for reality. Reality is waiting for you to reach resonance. Release the drag, and the timeline you're seeking will respond without hesitation. Up next, why your thoughts may be collapsing the same reality loop over and over again, and how to escape the glitch in the mind that keeps creating from the past. You wake up with new intentions. You set your mind on progress, transformation, change. But somehow, by the end of the day, the feelings are familiar. The outcomes feel repetitive. You look around and realize you're still orbiting the same emotional patterns, the same reactions, the same circumstances that were present weeks, months, or even years ago. This is the effect of the collapse loop, a repeating cycle of mental and energetic activity that keeps collapsing the exact same version of reality into place, no matter how hard you try to shift it. The quantum field is always responding to what you focus on. But it doesn't just respond to your conscious thoughts. It responds to the totality of your attention, including the unconscious rhythms of your internal dialogue, emotional history, and nervous system memory. These components form what we'll call your default collapse pattern. Every day you observe. Every second, your focus is acting as the measurement tool that tells the quantum field, "This is real. This is who I am. This is what's happening." But if your observations, your mental and emotional focus, are stuck in feedback loops, you're not observing something new. You're unconsciously signaling, repeat. The mind becomes trapped in this cycle when awareness gets hijacked by familiar thought forms. These thought forms are typically charged with emotional weight: fear, regret, resentment, guilt, or attachment. And because they're familiar, the mind gives them priority. Familiarity feels safe. So the brain chooses to recycle the same thoughts instead of exploring new frequencies. And each time a thought is repeated, it strengthens the neural circuit. The stronger the circuit, the more dominant the signal. The more dominant the signal, the more real it becomes. You're not addicted to the thought. You're addicted to the safety of the loop. And here's how the trap deepens. When the mind perceives that something is repeating, it assumes it's correct. So when the same relationship problems surface, or the same financial blocks return, or the same self-doubt creeps in, the mind concludes, "This must be true." That conclusion reinforces belief. Belief reinforces emotion. Emotion reinforces observation. And observation collapses the same outcome again. This is not bad luck. This is not fate. This is glitching inside a closed quantum loop. So what causes these loops to begin? They often originate from emotional trauma, identity conflicts, or long-term reinforcement of a disempowering narrative. But more precisely, they begin when a moment of emotional intensity gets paired with high focus. The mind locks that moment as significant. The body remembers the sensation, and the field bookmarks the frequency. Over time, when anything even slightly similar is encountered, the old loop is triggered. The thought arises, the emotion follows, and the body reacts not to what's happening now but to what happened then. The result, reality begins collapsing based on the past, not the present intention. To break this loop, you must first interrupt the cycle of familiar observation. This begins with thought exposure. This is not the same as mindfulness. It's targeted awareness of your most repetitive internal statements. Listen carefully throughout the day. What are the phrases that replay in your mind without permission? Are you constantly hearing, "I can't handle this"? "I always mess things up"? Or "It's never going to work"? These thoughts are not harmless. They're anchor points. Each one represents a frequency your field is being trained to collapse repeatedly. Once identified, you use pattern disruption. The next time the thought appears, do not simply try to suppress it or replace it. That keeps the energy active. Instead, respond with neutral observation. Say internally, "There's the loop again." This creates psychological distance, and that distance dissolves identification. Once you are no longer the thought but the observer of it, it loses its power to collapse reality. But that's not enough. You must now insert a quantum anomaly, a completely new thought or action that has no historical precedent in your behavior pattern. The mind expects repetition. When you introduce something entirely unexpected, something bold, new, aligned with your higher timeline, you create a rupture in the loop. The energetic field senses something different and begins collapsing a new outcome. This could be as simple as speaking up when you'd usually stay silent, making a decision your old self would have delayed, feeling gratitude in the middle of chaos. These anomalies don't need to be extreme. They need to be true to the version of you that lives beyond the loop. The collapse loop also feeds on time. When the mind continuously references the past and projects fear into the future, it creates temporal distortion. The only moment where the loop can be severed is now. Use zero-point awareness. the practice of returning your entire focus to what you are seeing, hearing, and sensing in this moment. Not judging, not analyzing, just being. Every time you do this, you are reestablishing your ability to observe from neutrality. And when you observe from neutrality, the loop cannot find purchase. It begins to dissolve. Here's the final key. Do not wait for the loop to break before acting from the new identity. Act as if the loop has already ended. When you behave from the new frequency, even while echoes of the loop still linger, you prove to the field that the program no longer runs you. That's when reality shifts. You don't break the loop by resisting it. You break the loop by becoming someone it cannot contain. The collapse loop is real. It's powerful, but it's not absolute. It only persists as long as your observer feeds it. The moment you stop reacting to the past and start embodying the future, the loop destabilizes. The patterns collapse. The glitch is exposed. And what emerges is clarity, flow, and new probability. Coming up, the strange interference jamming your inner signal, why intuition seems so quiet, and how to clear the static that keeps you from receiving clean, elevated guidance. There's a reason your intuition sometimes feels faint. A reason your clarity fades just when you need it most. A reason guidance feels like it's there one moment, then gone the next. It's not because you're out of alignment. It's not because you lack discipline or awareness. It's because your signal is being scrambled by a constant influx of quantum static interfering with your field. Quantum static is the unseen noise that clouds your perception, weakens your intuition, and disrupts the energetic flow between your conscious mind and the intelligence of your higher self. It's a subtle but persistent force, and it's everywhere. This interference doesn't come from one source. It comes from many: digital saturation, emotional residue, collective fear patterns, unresolved tension in the body, environmental frequencies, even the energy fields of people around you. All of it adds up to one thing: noise. And in a field of noise, signal clarity collapses. Your consciousness is like a receiver. It's built to tune into frequencies of insight, guidance, and intuitive awareness. But just like a radio surrounded by static, the more interference there is in your environment or your emotional body, the more distorted the message becomes. You might catch glimpses of truth, sudden clarity, sharp intuition, but moments later, the noise returns. Doubt creeps in, confusion resurfaces, and what felt like a clear channel fades into distortion. This isn't just psychological. It's quantum-level disruption. Let's break it down. Your intuition operates through coherence, a smooth flow of energetic data moving from higher dimensions into your conscious awareness. When the emotional body is calm, the nervous system is regulated, and the environment is quiet, that signal flows clearly. But when there's tension, emotional stress, unresolved memories, overstimulation, electromagnetic overload, the coherence fractures. The incoming energy becomes jumbled, and your interpretation of it becomes unreliable. You may still receive intuitive nudges, but they'll be filtered through layers of fear, urgency, bias, or exhaustion. This is how misalignment happens, not because your intuition is wrong, but because the signal has been contaminated. Quantum static also feeds on unprocessed energy. Every time you suppress an emotion, avoid a truth, or carry someone else's emotional weight, you store energy that was never allowed to move. That energy doesn't disappear. It stays in your field, spinning, echoing, creating subtle interference. This static becomes background noise, not loud enough to notice consciously, but powerful enough to block higher guidance. And because it's subtle, you may not even realize it's there. You just feel foggy, drained, out of sync. That's the trap. You think something's wrong with your ability to connect, but the only thing blocking the connection is what hasn't been cleared. So how do you clear it? You start by identifying where the static is coming from. Ask yourself, where in my life do I feel emotionally unresolved? What patterns drain my energy? What people or environments consistently leave me feeling off-center? Be brutally honest. Every unresolved emotion, every ignored tension, every energetic imbalance is adding static to your system. Once identified, you move to energetic discharge. This is the practice of consciously moving energy out of your field through breath, movement, sound, or stillness. Choose a practice that resonates with your system. Could be deep breathing, shaking the body, chanting, laying in silence. What matters is that you're letting the body process what the mind tried to bypass. This is not about healing the past. It's about removing the noise that past experiences left behind. Next, you strengthen the receiver. Your intuition needs a stable platform to operate through. That platform is your nervous system. When the nervous system is overwhelmed or unregulated, intuition gets buried under reaction. Regulation begins with rhythm. Start by creating moments of intentional stillness, just 5 to 10 minutes a day, where you remove external stimulation. No screen, no sound, no talking, just the breath and the body. This isn't about meditation. It's about resetting your internal circuitry. Over time, this stillness retrains your system to find baseline coherence. That coherence becomes the default state your intuition flows through. You'll also want to protect your signal. Quantum static often enters through unconscious exposure. Social media scrolls, violent news, chaotic environments, overexposure to emotional drama. Each one adds a microlayer of distortion. The more conscious you are about what you allow into your field, the clearer your inner world becomes. Think of it like tuning an instrument. If you're constantly letting others pluck the strings, it'll never stay in tune. But if you become the only one who touches it, who tunes it, plays it, listens to it, it begins to harmonize with your unique frequency. That's the power of signal ownership. Finally, begin to trust what comes through. One of the most subtle forms of quantum static is self-doubt. The moment you question your intuitive hit, the field hesitates. The energy retracts. It stops flowing because your observer is no longer neutral. The skeptical. That skepticism generates friction, which blocks clarity. So even if you're unsure, especially if you're unsure, choose to trust your signal before you overanalyze it. Truth moves quickly. Noise moves in circles. As the static clears, something extraordinary happens. You begin receiving more information with less effort. You sense things before they occur. You make decisions with precision. You feel guided not by logic, but by something deeper, quieter, unmistakable. That's not magic. That's clarity. And clarity is the condition the quantum field responds to fastest. When your field is clear. When your emotions are calm. When your environment supports coherence. The static fades, and the signal, your true signal, rings loud and unmistakable. There's a program running in the background of your mind. It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't need your awareness. And yet, it influences nearly every decision you make, every emotion you feel, and every result you unconsciously generate. This program is not new. It's not random. It's ancient. It's what we call the shadow codex, a deeply embedded set of subconscious instructions that silently shape the reality you experience on a daily basis. This is more than limiting beliefs. These are not just thoughts that say, "I'm not good enough" or "success is hard." Those are surface-level echoes. The shadow codex goes deeper. It's the root system, the source code, and until you become aware of it, it keeps running by default. Every thought you think and action you take is influenced by a deeper framework, an invisible architecture of belief created from childhood impressions, inherited patterns, ancestral trauma, societal conditioning, and emotionally charged experiences. These beliefs don't live in your conscious mind. They live in the subconscious, where 95% of your behavior is controlled. And because they operate in the background, you rarely notice them. You only notice their effects: recurring obstacles, emotional sabotage, disconnection from intuition, struggle with abundance, repeating relationship dynamics. All of these are symptoms. The root cause lies in the codex, the quantum code of belief silently instructing your energetic field on what is allowed to manifest. This code isn't logical. It's energetic. Each belief in the shadow codex carries a frequency. That frequency acts as a signature that broadcasts into the quantum field. The field doesn't respond to your surface desires. It responds to that underlying signature. So if the codex is broadcasting lack, no amount of external effort will create true abundance. If the codex is broadcasting unworthiness, no level of validation will create lasting confidence. If the codex is broadcasting guilt, your success will always come with hidden punishment. This is not because you're broken. It's because your system is running old software. The first step to shifting this is to understand how the shadow codex is formed. It begins in early childhood, when your brain is operating in a theta state, a deeply receptive frequency. During this stage, you absorb everything as truth. Words, facial expressions, emotional energy, family dynamics. They all become hard-coded as the way things are. These absorbed impressions become your foundational beliefs, not just about the world, but about who you are, how life works, and what you deserve. But here's the twist. The subconscious mind doesn't question accuracy. It accepts repetition as truth. So even if the original impression was a misunderstanding, like being ignored and interpreting that as, I'm not important, it still becomes code. And unless consciously examined, it stays active for life. The codex is further reinforced by emotion. Every time a belief is paired with a strong emotion, fear, shame, rejection, humiliation, it becomes magnetic. The emotional charge locks it into your system, and your quantum field begins generating situations to confirm that belief over and over again. It's not punishment, it's pattern matching. The field is neutral. It simply reflects the dominant frequency you're broadcasting, and the shadow codex determines that frequency more than anything else. So how do you change it? First, you must decode it. This requires unfiltered self-inquiry. Start by asking direct questions. What recurring patterns in my life feel beyond my control? What outcome do I consistently attract that contradicts my conscious desires? What belief would someone have to hold in order to keep attracting that outcome? For example, if you continually feel unseen or unheard, the root belief might be, my voice doesn't matter. If you fear being alone but always push people away, the root belief might be, connection leads to pain. Trace the pattern. Find the underlying instruction. Once identified, don't argue with it. Observe it. Give it space. You're not trying to fight the belief, you're trying to neutralize its charge. That brings us to the second step, energetic deactivation. This happens when you bring the belief into conscious awareness and allow the emotion behind it to surface without judgment. Sit with the belief. Feel its emotional roots. Allow any memories or sensations to come forward. And then breathe. Use your breath as a stabilizing force. Not to escape the feeling, but to remain present with it. This presence creates a crack in the pattern. That crack begins to dismantle the energetic charge that has kept the code active. The final step is quantum reprogramming. This is where you install a new belief not just through affirmation, but through full-body integration. Choose a belief that directly contradicts the old code. Something expansive, precise, and emotionally resonant. For example, my voice shapes reality. I am supported in every dimension. My existence is inherently valuable. Repeat it slowly, softly, in stillness. Then visualize a scenario where that belief is already true. Feel how your body shifts. Anchor that sensation into your nervous system. This is not mental repetition. This is emotional rehearsal. Over time, the new signal becomes dominant. And once the codex receives a stronger frequency, the old code fades. Remember this, the shadow codex isn't your enemy. It's a survival system. It was built to protect you, by helping you fit in, stay safe, and avoid pain. But now, those same programs are limiting your expansion. You don't need to destroy the codex. You need to upgrade it. And once you do, the quantum field begins to mirror your new identity. You'll notice a shift in how people treat you, in what opportunities show up, in how your body feels, in what becomes magnetized to your presence. Not because you're lucky, but because you finally stopped broadcasting the instructions that were never really yours. Right now, your mind is filtering reality. Not lightly, not subtly, completely. You're not seeing life as it is. You're seeing life as your inner programming allows you to perceive it. This isn't a metaphor, it's a measurable phenomenon. And it's why two people can walk through the same moment and experience entirely different worlds. This is the quantum veil, a built-in perceptual filter designed to reduce information, protect the nervous system, and preserve identity coherence. But over time, it becomes a prison of perception, a limitation field, a distortion lens that keeps you locked inside a carefully curated illusion of consistency. Your brain processes billions of bits of data per second, but you consciously register only a fraction of that. Why? Because your filter, the reticular activating system in the brain, is trained to notice only what aligns with your current beliefs, expectations, and emotional state. That means entire possibilities, pathways, and opportunities are literally invisible to you, not because they don't exist, but because your internal filter has no reference point to recognize them. This is the quantum trap most people never realize they're caught in, because the filter doesn't feel like distortion, it feels like truth. It feels like, this is just how life works. It feels like, these are the types of people that exist. It feels like, this is what I'm capable of. But what you're really experiencing is a controlled slice of reality, curated by your internal frequency. The field is infinite, but your filter is narrow. Let's get clear on how this filter forms. From early life, your brain begins cataloging what's important and what's not. What keeps you safe? What gets rewarded? What leads to pain? Over time, this becomes a map, a neural lens that defines what gets filtered in and what gets filtered out. If abundance was never normalized, your filter blocks evidence of wealth. If love was conditional, your filter distrusts healthy relationships. If creativity was dismissed, your filter ignores inspiration. This isn't conscious sabotage. It's survival logic. The filter protects your identity by only allowing in what reinforces your existing narrative. But here's the paradox. The more you grow, the more the filter resists change. Because new data threatens the old map. And the old map is what the ego relies on to feel stable, certain, in control. So when you try to expand by envisioning a new life, shifting your mindset, or embracing a higher version of yourself, the filter pushes back. It says, this doesn't fit. This isn't realistic. You're being naive. That's not your higher self talking. That's the filter preserving itself. So how do you disrupt it? You start by identifying the edges of your current perceptual boundary. Ask yourself, what do I never seem to notice in my environment? What kind of people, opportunities, or outcomes do I automatically dismiss? What beliefs feel too absurd, too far-fetched, or too uncomfortable to even consider? These are the blind spots of the filter, not because they don't exist, but because your system has been trained to exclude them. The goal isn't to force your mind to accept everything. The goal is to create just enough disruption to allow a new possibility through. This is where perceptual anomaly exposure comes in. Intentionally place yourself in unfamiliar environments. Listen to people with radically different worldviews. Study outcomes that defy your expectations. This isn't about agreement. It's about expansion. Every time you witness something outside your belief system and allow it without judgment, you create a fracture in the filter. That fracture is your entry point. Next, use frequency shock to override your usual response. Do something unpredictable. Make a bold decision you wouldn't usually consider. Take an action that your old identity would hesitate to approve. This act confuses the filter. And confusion is powerful. It weakens the gatekeeper and allows new data to flow in before the filter can shut it down. But the most powerful way to alter the quantum veil is through neutral observation. This means witnessing your internal reactions without reacting to them. When you catch yourself making instant judgments about people, outcomes, ideas, pause. Ask, is this reaction based on truth or on conditioning? Is this conclusion rooted in awareness or in the need for certainty? This micro-interruption forces the filter to loosen its grip. And the more often you pause your automatic responses, the more fluid your perception becomes. Eventually, the filter begins to dissolve. Not completely, but enough to reveal what's always been hiding in plain sight. The synchronicities you never noticed. the paths you thought were closed, the people who are ready to support your growth, the version of yourself that's always been waiting behind the veil. As your perception expands, reality expands. Not because the world changes, but because your access to it changes. And that's when the trap begins to fall apart. You're not limited by the world. You're limited by what your system has been trained to perceive as possible. Reality is not static. It's not fixed. It's dynamic, responsive, multidimensional. When your filter loosens, even slightly, you start to see threads, connections, messages, nudges that you once dismissed. These are not random. They're guideposts, invitations to step beyond your current map. And the more often you say yes to those invitations, the faster your perceptual system upgrades. The faster you transition from survival perception to creation perception. This is the shift from reaction to vision, from limitation to clarity, from programmed realism to liberated awareness. Coming next, the hidden anchors in your environment, symbols, objects, and sounds that are secretly reinforcing your limitations. Let's decode the matrix of external triggers that keep your mind stuck in an old loop. Your external world isn't just a backdrop. It's a mirror, a matrix of reflections that continually reinforce what you believe, how you feel, and what you unconsciously accept as truth. But within that matrix lies a hidden system, an energetic grid of holographic triggers. These are the symbols, sounds, patterns, and visual cues embedded into your daily environment that reinforce your current identity and limit your expansion. They don't seem powerful. They're not loud. In fact, they often appear neutral or even meaningless. But that's the point. They bypass your conscious awareness. And in doing so, they activate subconscious programs that keep you locked inside a looping field of familiarity. Here's how it works. Your subconscious mind is an association machine. It links sensory input to emotional memory. When a particular image, word, sound, or layout is repeatedly experienced, the subconscious connects it to a specific frequency, usually tied to the emotional state most often felt in that context. For example, if the layout of your workspace has been the backdrop to years of stress, frustration, or stagnation, the visual environment itself becomes a trigger. You walk in, and your body starts to prepare for the same emotional experience, even if you've consciously changed your intentions. The subconscious doesn't analyze context. It reacts to patterns. And those patterns live in symbols. This is how environments become containers of identity. Let's take this deeper. Look around your physical space. Notice what's on your walls, on your desk, in your closet. Every object you've kept, every image you see regularly, every layout you've repeated for years, each one is anchoring you to a specific version of yourself. That cracked phone screen, that cluttered drawer, that book you keep but haven't read in years, that app you always open when you're bored. None of them are neutral. They're holographic memory points. Each time your senses engage with them, they reinforce neural and energetic patterns. You might not notice it, but your energy field does. It adjusts, responds, contracts, or aligns depending on what it perceives. Now multiply that by the thousands of micro-interactions you have with your environment every single day. This is the hidden feedback loop. You're being energetically reminded constantly of who you used to be. And unless that loop is disrupted, no amount of inner work will fully override the subtle reinforcements keeping you tied to an outdated timeline. Holographic triggers also extend to sound and language. The music you play on repeat, the types of voices you surround yourself with, even the words you use to describe your life. All of these act as vibrational anchors. Words carry frequency. When spoken with repetition and emotional charge, they become spoken codes that instruct your subconscious how to behave. Words like, "I'm so tired," "It's always something," "Nothing ever works for me." These aren't just expressions, they're commands. And when they're paired with reinforcing triggers in your environment, the program becomes airtight. This is how people stay stuck in the same energetic state for years, because the loop is both internal and external. Thoughts match surroundings. Surroundings match thoughts. And the feedback cycle creates a seamless illusion of stability. So how do you escape? First, you must scan your field. This isn't just about cleaning your house. It's about identifying energetic redundancies. Look at everything in your space with new eyes. Ask, what version of me placed this here? What emotional state does this object evoke? What belief does this symbol reinforce? The goal is not to create aesthetic perfection. It's to remove anything that doesn't match your current or desired frequency. Start small. Change what you see first thing in the morning. Shift what you hear while you work. Introduce new symbols that represent expansion, clarity, and vision. These changes may seem minor, but they create micro-disruptions in the loop. And those disruptions allow space for new neural and energetic patterns to emerge. Second, use conscious replacement. Whenever you remove an anchor, replace it with an intentional signal. Replace mindless scrolling with 5 minutes of breathwork. Replace chaotic noise with silence or sound frequencies that elevate your state. Replace passive decorations with images that inspire movement, courage, or serenity. This isn't about forced positivity. It's about symbolic alignment. Every symbol you interact with is either pulling you into the past or drawing you into the future. Make sure your environment is a visual prophecy, not a nostalgic trap. Finally, become aware of language hygiene. Pay close attention to your daily vocabulary. Not just what you say to others, but what you whisper to yourself. If you catch yourself using old programming phrases, pause. Replace them with upgraded codes. Not as fake mantras, but as energetic corrections. Instead of "I'm stuck," say "I'm recalibrating." Instead of "I never get it right," say "I'm refining my alignment." Instead of "I'm overwhelmed," say "I'm learning how to expand into more." Your words are the command line of your quantum software. Treat them as sacred. Holographic triggers are not inherently malicious. They're just mirrors. But mirrors, when unexamined, become cages. Once you start paying attention, you'll see how much of your daily life is a projection of your past self's choices. And the more you clear, shift, and realign your sensory inputs, the more rapidly your inner transformation takes hold. Because now, your outer world isn't working against your evolution, it's echoing it. And when both the internal and external fields are aligned, the quantum shift becomes immediate. Next up, the final method for deprogramming the trap itself: how to reclaim full sovereignty over your mind, your energy, and your timeline through a 3-part reset method designed to permanently shift your operating system. You've seen the trap. You've felt its edges through thought repetition, emotional distortion, energetic interference, and subconscious coding. But awareness alone doesn't dissolve the pattern. It opens the door. What you need now is not more knowledge. What you need is a protocol, a structured, direct, repeatable method to shift your energetic operating system and reclaim full sovereignty over your mind. This is the escape protocol. It's not theoretical. It's not philosophical. It's a precise, 3-part reset method designed to interrupt the trap, rewire your field, and reestablish your alignment with a higher timeline. The trap is not a singular force. It's a layered entanglement. So your escape cannot be passive. It must engage all 3 layers: awareness, energy, and time. Let's break it down. Step 1. Awareness activation. This is the critical first move. The trap functions through unconscious loops. It needs invisibility to survive. Awareness severs that connection. Start with targeted self-scan. This isn't reflection. It's diagnostic. Ask 3 high-frequency questions. What version of me is being expressed in this moment? Is this thought or behavior being driven by fear, pattern, or vision? What belief must be active for this reaction to feel natural? These questions are not meant to inspire guilt. They're meant to crack the automatic loop running your system. The moment you name the program, it weakens. The moment you reveal the belief, it begins to detach. The moment you question the behavior, your observer takes the wheel. Do this daily, especially during emotional spikes, hesitation, or when old patterns start to resurface. Clarity is not accidental. It's engineered. Step 2. Energetic reset. Once awareness is activated, your field is open for change. But clarity without energetic rebalancing creates instability. You need to flush out the old signal and restore coherence. Use the 3-phase reset ritual. Phase 1, discharge. Move the energy. Speak it, breathe it, shake it, walk it. Don't analyze it. Let it exit. Energy wants flow, not interpretation. Get primal. Get honest. The goal is release, not understanding. Phase 2, stabilization. Bring your system back into center. Close your eyes. Anchor into your breath. Count each inhale, lengthen each exhale. The slower you breathe, the faster your field recovers. Hold your attention in your body. Feel your heartbeat. Stay with it. Let the nervous system recalibrate. Phase 3, frequency install. Now introduce your new code. This is not a mantra. It's a declaration. One sentence, spoken slowly, with absolute intention. I am aligned with the timeline of clarity, sovereignty, and truth. I choose presence over programming. I release all frequencies not aligned with who I am becoming. Say it, feel it, mean it. Let the frequency take root. Energetic resets done consistently reprogram your field faster than any journal or mental exercise ever could. You're not changing your mind. You're tuning your entire field. And once your field changes, the trap begins to lose structural support. But one layer remains: time. Step 3, timeline recalibration. The quantum trap thrives on timeline rigidity. It keeps you glued to one version of your life, one sequence of events, one limited identity. Recalibration is about stepping off that default track and aligning with the alternate reality that already exists within the field, a reality that matches the expanded version of you. Here's the process. Phase A, collapse the old timeline. Name it out loud. I collapse the timeline of Insert the pattern, story, or identity that no longer fits. This is a conscious disengagement from the energetic scaffolding that holds the old version of your life together. Then visualize that timeline breaking apart, pixels disintegrating, threads unraveling. Whatever imagery speaks to you, but feel it disassemble. Phase B, select the new path. Now choose the new timeline. Not in fantasy, but in resonance. Ask, what version of me already lives in the outcome I seek? What does their energy feel like? How do they speak? How do they move? Embody it, not in your mind, but in your state. Adopt their posture. Breathe like they do. Think like they do. Don't perform it. Be it. Phase C, initiate the shift. Choose one immediate action that aligns with that identity. Something small, symbolic, but clear. Send the message. Make the call. Change the plan. Say the truth. Do it fast. The field responds best to unhesitating movement. That's how you signal to the quantum. The shift has begun. The escape protocol is not a one-time ritual. It's a recalibration method. Each time you use it, you're not just disrupting the trap, you're installing a new signal. One that's not built on fear, trauma, or old patterns, but on choice, clarity, and conscious creation. Over time, your baseline identity begins to change. Your perception sharpens. Your reactions soften. Your energy field becomes inhospitable to interference. And the trap? It fades, not with a bang, but with a gradual unraveling. Because it can't hold power over someone who no longer fits the frequency. You're not escaping life. You're exiting a simulation. Sovereignty isn't a mindset. It's a vibrational stance. It's the moment you stop outsourcing your reality to the past. It's when your signal becomes louder than your programming. It's when your presence speaks louder than your doubt. From this place, reality no longer dictates your limits. You dictate the structure of your experience. And now you're ready for the final shift. Let's look at what happens beyond the trap. When your field is clear, your code is upgraded, and your mind is finally operating from full-spectrum freedom. Once the trap dissolves, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop trying to change your reality, and you start generating it. Not through force, not through constant effort, but through a seamless, intuitive relationship with the field around you. This is the beginning of the quantum renaissance, not a return to an old state, but an unveiling of the mind's natural design. Infinite, intelligent, and sovereign. You are no longer reacting from the past. You're no longer bound by emotional distortions, inherited beliefs, or subconscious instruction codes. The limitations that once felt so heavy begin to fall away, not because you destroyed them, but because you simply stopped agreeing with them. And now, a new architecture emerges. The infinite mind is not something you develop. It's something you remember. It is the awareness beyond your identity, beyond your history, beyond even your goals. It is the silent intelligence that perceives all timelines at once and selects outcomes with energetic precision. From this state, intention becomes directive. You no longer send out desires like wishes into the void. You assign instructions to the field, and it responds accordingly. You begin to notice a strange calm. The urgency that used to drive your decisions disappears. It's replaced by clarity, a sense of knowing, as if each moment is revealing exactly what's needed, and your role is not to force, but to align, adjust, and receive. This is what happens when resistance is removed. The mind opens, the energy moves, the outcomes shift. You begin to operate in what we call a fluid timeline. Instead of moving through time linearly, past to present to future, you begin to interact with it as a responsive matrix. You realize that the version of you who has already created what you seek exists now, and that by aligning to their frequency, you draw their timeline inward like a gravitational pull. There is no chase, no delay, only resonance. This is not visualization. This is energetic presence. Your decisions become simpler. Your movements feel lighter. You no longer question every impulse because your impulses come from signal, not static. From here, synchronicity increases exponentially. But you stop calling it luck or magic. You recognize it for what it truly is: field responsiveness. The field is not random. It's reactive. The cleaner your signal, the faster the field mirrors your state. This is why the trap had to be cleared. Not just to escape limitation, but to activate coherence. And now, something even deeper awakens. Not just the mind, not just the energy field, but the purpose. You begin to realize that your expansion is not personal. It's part of a larger unfolding. A shift not only in your life, but in consciousness itself. Because every time you collapse an old timeline, clear a piece of interference, or embody a higher identity, you create ripple effects. People around you begin to change. Without words, without coaching, just from your presence. This is the quantum echo. The field adjusting itself around you because your vibration has recalibrated the local grid. And when enough individuals step out of the trap, the entire collective begins to loosen its grip on limitation. That's what this truly is. This isn't just your awakening. It's a network-wide activation, a return to sovereign consciousness at scale. But understand this clearly. Freedom isn't a peak you reach. It's a state you maintain. The trap may try to return. Patterns may attempt to resurface. But now you're equipped. You know the signs. You feel the shifts. You recognize the signal drops before they become crises. And more importantly, you correct quickly. That's mastery. Not perfection, but precision, presence. A subtle vigilance that protects your state and honors your power. You stop being impressed by chaos. You stop being seduced by drama. You stop negotiating with frequencies that no longer match who you've become. In this quantum renaissance, intelligence looks different. It's no longer measured by information. It's measured by signal clarity. Can you hear the subtle cues of your intuition without distortion? Can you sense misalignment before it manifests? Can you hold your center in the face of collapsing timelines? These are the new benchmarks. And the more you refine your awareness, the more life becomes a canvas, not a maze. You move from proving your worth to radiating your truth. From surviving the matrix to writing your own code. From living inside the rules to bending them with ease. The hidden trap was never meant to break you. It was meant to awaken you. It was placed there by systems, by generations, by trauma, not to end you but to give you contrast. To provide the friction necessary to activate choice. And now you've made it. You've seen the illusion. You've deactivated the programs. You've reclaimed your mind, your field, your path. So what happens next? That's entirely up to you. You can return to the loop, reinstall the code, wait for permission, or you can step forward, quietly, intentionally, unapologetically, into the version of reality that's always been waiting for you to match its frequency. Not someday, not when the timing is right, now. Because now the trap is gone, and all that remains is everything you were born to create.